From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Why are you a conspiracy theorist? And I said, why isn't everybody a goddamn conspiracy theorist?
This is the real research. Literally have an alien base, and they are literally communicating.
I don't have a whole lot of time.
Have you personally had any experience with interdimensional beings?
What we're thinking of as aliens, they have infiltrated a lot of aspects of military intelligence. They are not what they claim to be.
We leave you much that is undone.
It's one small step for man.
There are great ideas undiscovered.
Visit asteroids, visit the moon of Mars.
Remove one of truth's protective layers.
There's a monolith.
They want those major population centers wiped out.
Will you put your left hand on the Bible and swear to God that you walked on the moon?
One giant leap for mankind.
Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened.
Those challenges are yours.
We don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society.
There are places to go beyond belief. Beyond belief.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Conspiracy Podcast. We don't take days off because reptilians don't take days off. And it is my great pleasure to welcome back to a podcast with me and Ollie, but the first time on the Daily Conspiracy Podcast, Fringe. Thank you for coming and joining us.
Hey, thanks you guys. I'm happy to be here. Good to see you guys again. Ollie is muted.
Yeah,
Ollie's muted. I think he's greeting me
weird.
Essentially, but he was muted.
That was strange. I was just saying, if anybody's going to know about reptilians not taking days off, it's going to be you, Fringe.
That's very unfortunate, but yes, you're probably right about that.
So, how have you been in the few months since we spoke to each other last?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm doing well, actually. If we're just talking about the phenomenon, I'm doing much better than I was, let's say, this time in 2023, when I was literally sleeping in a helmet made of velostat, and trying to avoid the whole alien abduction phenomenon. So I'm doing a lot better now. I'm a lot more relaxed. I'm not sleeping in the helmet anymore, which is fantastic. And I think at least some of the activity has come down a little bit, which is really nice. So I'm excited about that.
Just for our audience, because obviously the last time that you were on Alien Addict. How long has this been going on with yourself, Fringe?
Well, I've come to understand it's probably been going on my entire life. So this started when I was a kid, but I didn't have any context for it when I was a kid. My first experience was at about 3.5 years old. And then I had some other experiences as a child. And then starting when I was a teenager, I had a lot of interactions with shadow people. And then my whole adult life, I was having a lot of interactions with shadow people. It was just, it was a regular thing. It was happening to me. It was happening to my siblings. I came to find out later it was happening to my mother as well, and my grandmother. So this was something that had been going on my whole life, but I'm 56 now. And so when I hit about 50, I don't even know, 53, 54, so this 2021 is when this started. That's when I started putting together a much bigger picture. And when I started becoming much more lucid and conscious during some of my experiences, and I actually started realizing that the shadow people have everything to do with what we call the alien abduction phenomenon. And so if you had talked to me, if you had just talked to me at the age of 50, I would have said, oh yeah, these shadow people, I've been dealing with them my whole life. And I've had some very, in hindsight, interesting, odd experiences. I had been out of body a lot. I was a lucid dreamer. These were things that were just normal. And I think they are normal for a lot of us. but I never put it together with the alien abduction phenomenon. I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that when I was being attacked by a shadow person, that it could have something to do with aliens. I separated that. I thought shadow people were paranormal, supernatural, even demonic. When I was younger, I thought it was demonic. Then I went through this period where I remember reading an article. It was like Glamour magazine or something, and I was in my 30s, and this was something I had been dealing with for a long time. And I remember I read something about sleep paralysis. And I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, oh, thank heaven. Like, this is a thing. It happens to other people. And it's just a hallucination. This is not really happening. It's just a hallucination. And it happens during this period of sleep paralysis. And I even went and told my siblings, hey, you guys, whatever's happening to us, whatever this is, don't worry about it. Don't be afraid of it. It's not demons. It's just something called sleep paralysis. And I looked it up online. This was when we had just gotten the internet in our home. And I was so relieved to hear about this thing called sleep paralysis. Well, and I kind of bought off on that for many years. And I just put it to the back burner. Like, these things that are happening to me, especially in the middle of the night, it's nothing to worry about. It's something that everybody goes through. It's called sleep paralysis. And then through some interesting circumstances, when I got into my 50s, I started kind of focusing on this area. And I think I was watching a show. I hope I don't get this wrong. I was watching a show with my husband. By this time, I had kind of started getting into a little bit of new age stuff. And I was watching a show with my husband on Gaia TV. And it was about shadow people. And I remember watching the show, and I was stunned because here I was being shown other people who had also been told that they were experiencing sleep paralysis, but they had seen Hat Man. Well, I had seen Hat Man when I was 17 years old, and I had told my husband all about it. And so we were watching the show, and he turned and looked at me and he said, wait a minute, you've told me about this thing, that you've seen, and all this stuff that's been happening to you all this time. Because there were so many times where I would be yelling or screaming or trying to wake him up or trying to hit him to wake him up, when these things were happening throughout our marriage. We've been married now like 27 years. And so
he just thought it was domestic abuse, did he?
Yeah, just domestic abuse. It's like, wake up, save me from the shadow people. And so that was the first moment I went, wait a minute, is this not sleep paralysis? Like, was I being lied to this whole time? Which, I guess can buy some comfort, some years of comfort, which was okay. But that's when I started going, wait a minute, what is this? And, I reached out to my siblings again, started talking to my mom again, started really looking at this and looking into this so-called sleep paralysis and realizing, okay, this was just like having a deity as a kid or whatever you guys want to call it, just some kind of comfort item for me, thinking that this was just sleep paralysis. I had kind of put it off, like, don't worry about that thing. Don't look over there. That's not really happening. It's just, you're just hallucinating. And so I don't even remember where that came in the series of events, but it was probably within that year that I was again encountering these shadow beings with so-called sleep paralysis, where at one point I was being, I call it a straitjacket hold. I was being held down by a shadow being. And by this time I had started to learn to try to fight out of it. And I realized that there were some things I could do to break out of this paralysis. And I break out of the paralysis and I wake up. Or are you awake? Are you asleep during this period? Some people will argue that you're still asleep. I felt very awake and conscious, but I wake up, open my eyes. So that's where the delineation is. I open up my eyes and there is a gray alien standing in my bedroom. And it was just a flash of an instant that I saw it. And I just was, at that minute, I said, oh my gosh, like, what is happening? And
can I just ask you on the alien gray? Was it
ask anything?
when you remember the flash, did it seem to have? It's going to sound weird, this, but was it 3D or was it 2D?
No, it was like awake 3D.
Yeah,
I was awake in my room.
The reason why I asked that, we had a guest that came on that saw when he said there was not a crinkle inside. It almost looked like flat.
I see what I think I see what you're saying. So
It's still
I suppose
3D,
if it's
but
like in the middle of phasing out or something, you might get that impression. So what happened was I saw it, and I only had an instant to try to solidify what it looked like in my mind, because next thing I knew, it had phased out or disappeared. So I only saw it for a brief second, and then it just kind of phased out. And as a matter of fact, I thought it was still standing there, but that it was just outside of my or visual awareness, because I kind of felt like it was still there. And I grabbed my phone, and I was talking to a researcher during this time. So this is actually quite a bit into it, because this probably would have been really late in 2022 or early 23. So the timing there is interesting. But I remember one of the researchers telling me that they're afraid of light. And so the first thing I did, even though it was actually morning and daylight, so the light was just coming in, it was like an early morning type thing, I grabbed my phone and hit the light on it, even though I have a flashlight too in my drawer. I didn't grab the flashlight. I grabbed my phone. I didn't try to record. I just hit the light and tried to shine it over there where I thought it was still standing. So that was when things kind of started solidifying for me. So I had dealt with shadow people my whole life. And then in 2021, I started having these interactions with what I would call aliens, alien abduction phenomenon, which I was not familiar with, because I hadn't been exposed to a lot of the material, or I hadn't seen any of the research or talked to any other abductees. So I started being exposed to the alien thing. I'm flying around in spaceships. They're doing medical examinations. I'm meeting a hybrid child. Crazy stuff is happening. But so that was something different to me. And that day I realized, oh my gosh, like this is related. These shadow people who have been taking me my whole life, or sometimes, it feels like they're trying to kill you or strangle you when they paralyze you. It's related. And that's when I had to stop and go, wait a minute, and kind of look back on my life. And I just kind of got out a piece of paper and started thinking about my childhood and different things that had happened to me as a kid. And I started talking to my mom and realizing it's not only happening to me, it's probably, the shadow thing is definitely happening to my siblings. And what that means is probably happening to them too. It's happening to my mom, and it was probably happening to my grandmother. Now, it also happens on the other side of my family, on my father's side as well. So that was when I just went, oh, wow, wait a minute. So these things, number one, that were shadow people. Then I was told, oh, it's just sleep paralysis. Now I'm getting hit in the head with, and then the alien thing came, and then I got hit in the head with, this is all related. So I don't want to say to your audience, all shadow people are aliens. But I have since spoken now to other abductees. And if you guys have ever heard of Ted Rice, he was the abductee who is the subject of the book Masquerade of Angels by Carla Turner. And Carla Turner is just an old OG alien abduction researcher who's since passed. So I was talking to this gentleman, and he said to me, oh yeah, I've seen the technology. They have technology on their belt. So he has seen that both the short grays and that medium-sized gray to tall gray use technology on the belt to turn themselves into an astral type of a being. So he had watched it actually turn from astral into a gray. And so this was something he already knew. And it was something I didn't know. And so I was trying to have to put all these pieces together for myself. And then I had some subsequent incidents where I'm being attacked by a shadow being and ending up on an alien ship. And so once I realized it was all very much related, or at least it can be related, again, is every single shadow being an alien? Probably not. There's probably different things going on. But at least in some cases, it is related. In my case, it's related. In Ted Rice's case, it's related. And I've now talked to several other abductees who understand that when they see the shadow person, they're about to be abducted.
What did the ship look like?
Well, when I see the ship, so I get taken to different places. So I could be on a ship, I could be underground, what I perceive as being underground, and they are a little bit different. So on the ships, to me, everything is just very white. And it's funny because a researcher who told me that they're afraid of light, it's interesting because I don't know how they could possibly be afraid of light, because on the ships, everything is very bright white. Everything is much more rounded. So my memories are all conscious recall. I've never had a regression to remember an abduction. And so if you talk to somebody, and I know I have someone specific in mind who's been regressed, they can give you all kinds of details about the ships. For me, what I remember about the ships, and when I'm looking around to try to figure out where am I at, who's got me, what's happening, I'm looking for, is it like a rounded environment? Is it the more high-tech environment? And then is everything just appears very white to me? And then I'm also looking at the beings. Is this human? Does the tech look human? Or do the beings look human? Are they human? And then in the underground environment, I might see something that makes me realize, oh, this is not a ship. So I have seen like cave walls, which lets me know that this is not an alien ship. So it can be different. Well, it is different. The two environments are different. But say in the underground environment, there have been times where I have received that medical examination or even a gynecological examination. I have been in medical beds where they put me in a bed for some type of weird healing or something. Those things have happened in the so-called underground environment. I say so-called because I don't know where it is, but that's what it seems to be. But I've also had those very same experiences in the alien environment. So it's like they're doing the same thing, but there's different things that I try to pay attention to try to figure out who's got me, what's happening, what's the agenda, and what is this for? But there are times I don't always know. So if I'm only in the hospital environment where they're doing their medical exams, it can be difficult. It can be difficult to know. But if I have been in a changing room, and then I'm in the medical exam room, and then I'm babysitting hybrid children, then there's a pretty good chance it's on board. So hopefully that makes sense. So there are times when I just don't know.
These hybrid children, what do they actually do? They look like? Do they look like a bit like a gray and a bit like a human?
So that's a whole rabbit hole. They look, it's different. It can be all different ways. So I've seen hybrid children with the really thin hair and the pointy chin, and they just look kind of frail and sick. I've seen that. I've also, though, seen completely normal looking children who would pass as human. And then I've also seen some very strange creatures that are in between that don't even necessarily look human. And that's going to be really hard to describe. So, oh boy. So there was a time when this was a ship environment, and I knew in this particular case because everything was rounded. And I was actually in this rounded medical facility that had this round walkway that I was walking through. This is going to be a crazy story. I think I've told it once before. It's going to be.
You're on the Daily Conspiracy Podcast.
Into the
It's
unbelievable
fine.
category. So I'll give you a little bit of a little maybe background information. So abductees aren't just abducted, and so we get abducted, and this is just like a common scenario: abduction, changing room, medical examination, which is normally has to do with the hybrid breeding program, where they're interested in certain genetic and biological material from abductees. And then a lot of times I will be taking care of children or watching children. But a lot of times there's a lesson, and a lot of times there's a lesson involved. So that's your typical scenario. But what's also happening to at least some abductees is we are getting training. And the training can be anything from like a crowd control to I've been taught how to fly the ships, supposedly, at least that's what they want me to think. And in this particular case, I was actually almost shadowing their medical people. And I was in a medical ward. It was all females who were in the medical ward. And I was walking through the medical ward, and one of the females was pregnant, and she was going into labor. And I was supposed to be with someone, but the person who was supposed to be with me was now no longer there. They had fallen behind or something. And I'm going to tell this story very loosely because I didn't even review it this morning before coming on. And what will happen, I told you before the podcast started, what will happen was I'll go back and read it and get, even more details. So she's pregnant and she is going into labor, and this is happening really fast. And I start yelling like, hey, somebody needs to get over here. I'm not a nurse. I don't have any idea what to do in this type of situation. Well, she has the baby very quickly, and the baby comes out in a shroud. And so the baby is covered and the water has not broken. And so the baby's shrouded. And I thought, crap, I've got to get this baby out of here. And this is happening very quickly. And I rip the shroud open, fully expecting to see a human child. And I do not see a human child. I couldn't even put it into words at the time, but I ended up later on seeing a picture that looked kind of similar to what I saw. And it was almost a squid. And I only know that because of a picture I later saw. So I ripped open.
I know the picture you're talking about. I think that's been doing the rounds for a while.
No, I don't think
people
so.
often tag it as being like maybe a reptilian child or something like that.
Oh, you know what? If you have it, pull it up. I can let you know. So I ripped open the shroud. I've got this thing on the ground, and it's not breathing. Well, I mean, I have some first aid training. I was in law enforcement for quite some time. And I remember thinking, wow, like I was expecting a human child, and here I am dealing with some kind of creature. I don't even know what this is at this point. It's got two little tiny slits for the nose. And I just have a knowing, and I just know that the heart is actually in its throat. And so as other hybrids, they look human, are responding, I am now leaning over, trying to see if this thing is breathing. And I start like a 2-finger CPR, but it's on the throat because I know that that's where its heart is. And this actually kind of goes into a deeper story because I was pissed because I was actually doing something for them. So there was something inside of me, probably because of my career, maybe just because of my personality or whatever it was, that I knew I had to help this creature. But at the same time, I was raging pissed because I knew I was saving one of the aliens, like, creations. So yeah, that's a whole weird story. And I could look up my journal and see if there's any more details in there, but that gives you an idea of, it's my opinion because of some of the things I've seen. They're not just breeding. I think they're still doing their experiments. So I've also seen a baby that looked like almost like a hippopotamus face or head. Super weird. So what do the babies look like?
I
It
love
runs,
baby
runs the
hippopotamuses,
gamut.
by the way. They're cute.
What's that, baby hippos? I was looking at it
They're
going,
amazing.
what is this? And
I mean, it's better than the squid baby because, I mean, explaining that to the mother, like, what a beautiful baby you have.
And the mother was human. I mean, as far as I knew, so in this environment, it's telepathic. And so everything is just kind of known. So as far as I knew, that the mom was a human, female. It could have been a hybrid. It's possible. But in what I believed, it was a human female. And so they're doing some strange things on the ships. I've seen babies who they just don't look right. And then other babies and other kids just completely straight. They absolutely look human. Hopefully that answers your question. I think they're still experimenting. I think they're still creating chimeras with this weird animal person hybrid thing. Super weird, super creepy. And it also
it's so weird that you've brought this up, because last night, and this is gonna like, what the hell has this got to do with this? But we were talking about Jeffrey Epstein and the fact that there was there's information coming out that was some experiments on that island, and we were looking at some of the murals on the island on the show, and there was creatures that was like. You had like half fish, human, squid things, and like a lot of myth stuff from Greek mythology. And we were talking about like these people recorded these things way back when, and they drew them on maps and things like that. And they drew them as to like document this sort of stuff. So now that you're saying this, it's
so weird. It sounds so weird, but then I'll hear stories about that they're actually doing this in the underground bases and stuff. Like they're actually creating chimeras, and they're doing this weird genetic interbreeding. And it's not going to surprise me at all if they are. This particular one that I saw was in a ship environment, but man, it gets so weird. And this kind of goes to something I've talked about before with other abductees. So part of the research into the phenomenon, people will say, oh, it just kind of changes itself, and it kind of morphs into something you're expecting to see. So if you're religious, you might see a religious figure, or if you're this or that, it's whatever you expect. I cannot tell you the number of times I see things I am absolutely not expecting to see. In this particular case, I was expecting to see a human child. And there are many times where I come out with the craziest stuff in my own head. It's like, this can't possibly be real, because what they do is they can give you any projection of what they want you to see. And it can be difficult to see through the projection. And so there are times when I'm looking going, okay, I know that that's not actually what I'm seeing now. But there are other times when I'm confident and I say, this is what I saw. I know it's what I saw. And I write it all down. And later I will find out from another abductee or from the abduction research that somebody else has seen the same thing. And so it's not always what we're expecting to see that the phenomenon is conforming to. There are so many times I write down something completely unexpected, only to find out later that it's actually pretty accurate, at least as far as other people have seen the same thing. So yeah, it's super creepy. So that's what they look like. The answer is all of the above.
Is this something like where it was? This isn't the photograph that I was actually looking for, but it's one that looks very similar to it.
No,
No,
not even close. I mean, this particular creature literally looked like a squid. It had a narrow, long body with what looked like vertebrae going all the way up its body. I could find it to you. I'll send it to you for whenever the recording is. I think I probably kept it. A lot of times if I see something online that looks somewhat similar to things that I've seen, I'll keep it, and I might have kept it. I'll check it. I'll check for it.
So the like the feeling when you've been taken and you're on like one of the ships or you're underground, is it a lucid like feeling like now, like we're all talking to each other awake now, or does it feel like a dream state? Because if it feels like lucid, like it's solid, do you think they use anything on you to keep you calm? Because like the idea of like you shadowing the medical staff and stuff like that seems like such a fucking huge amount of things to be going on to keep a calm, like to a level head while that's going on, and even to think of doing something. Do you know what I mean? Like you said you were shouting for the lady that was pregnant, even to think to act like that. I just wonder whether there's some sort of I would imagine that some things like this would be beyond drugs, but we hear about people being put in trances and dream states and stuff like that. Does it feel like 100% real?
So sometimes it does. I'm sending you a random picture that kind of looks like it's not random, but the picture on the left is what this thing is similar to the shape of what this thing was. That's on X. So there's different states, and I can find myself in different states. So I might be completely 100%. It's some kind of mind control. I don't even know how they do it. I mean, there's a lot of speculation on how they're doing it. People say they just stare into your eyes, and there's some neurological thing in there that they are just able to latch on to do the mind control. So there are different states of consciousness. And what started happening to me in about 2022 and definitely into 2023 was I started becoming more and more lucid during the contacts. So when this started out, I felt like I was in a dream state, and I would wake up in the morning and write down, I was on an alien ship. I met a hybrid child. I was taking care of babies. I had a medical examination, and it was very much in a dream state. And then things developed, and I started becoming more lucid. And so there's a happy middle ground where we can be controlled and kind of go along to get along, and then coming up into too much lucidity. So I have been 100% lucid, conscious as I am right now with this conversation on a few occasions. And those are the occasions when I become combative or get out of control, or I'm now fighting back. So there's a middle ground. And a lot of times it can feel like a dream. But I think because I've been lucid dreaming my whole life, I just have an awareness. It's very rare for me to be dreaming and not have a part of me knowing that I'm dreaming. Mm-hmm. And so it can be anywhere from something that feels like a dream. And many abductees will wake up and say, I had a really weird dream last night. Oh, but I also have marks on my body. And by the way, I woke up, locked outside of my house. So it can feel like a dream, anywhere from a dream to completely just being awake. So in the moment when I knew I had to save this baby, I knew I am in their environment. I am about to save this kid, and I was raging pissed because the part of me, the empathetic, sympathetic part of me, also probably because of my job, I have a duty to try to save that life, was competing with the part of me that was pissed off because I knew exactly where I was and what was happening. Now, I didn't see what I was expecting to see. I thought it was going to be a human baby. So, but then what happened after that? I have no idea. So I became conscious enough to yell and be pissed. I was raging pissed at the end of this. And then what happened after that? Well, I have no idea. So they have taken my consciousness now back down into, most of the people I see on the ships are in complete zombie mode, but they have to have a middle ground because you have to walk. You have to a lot of times will become aware when I'm in the changing room. They make you take off your own clothes. You have to walk down the hallway. You have to get up onto the table. So they have to leave you in a state of awareness to be able to do these things. Like they're not picking up every single person and putting them onto the table in a complete zombie mode. People are walking on their own to the tables. So it can be anywhere, to answer your question, hopefully, it can be anywhere from feeling like a dream to complete consciousness. And there are other abductees who are even better than me, or even more lucid and aware than I am, where they're actually getting even more details and things that I don't get. And then if an abductee is actually regressed, you would not believe the detail that they're able to come up with that they had. You know, they might have a screen memory of a dream. I'll give you a personal example. So, and I don't want to get this too wrong. It's written down in my own journal. I woke up. So there was two things that happened somewhat recently that I could talk about. So I woke up, sat up in bed, and I saw a huge arc of light coming in my window. So my window disappeared, that whole wall of my house disappeared, and I could see a huge arcing white light, and it was kind of fading out into a cream colored light coming in my window. And I even have it written down in my journal, and I said to myself, oh my gosh, I'm going to be awake for this one. What's coming? What's going to happen? And then that's it. Like that was it. That's the only memory I had. And I don't know what happened after that. I had another one not too long ago, and in the last few months, where again, I woke up and I watched a squirrel come into my window, run down the side of the wall and onto my bed. And the squirrel came onto my body, onto my chest, and looked me right in the eyes. And I was laying there going, I was actually frozen thinking, oh my gosh, don't move, because I was afraid it was going to bite me. But I knew that this was a precursor to an abduction. I knew it. I knew that that really wasn't a squirrel, and that this was going to end up being a screen memory for an abduction. So the squirrel was on top of me. Go ahead.
Either I'm going to get abducted right now, or I'm living in a goddamn Disney movie.
Disney movie. What? A squirrel? A squirrel coming through my window?
It's
so
crazy
I was laying there going,
you say
oh
that
God.
though. It's crazy you say that about the squirrel thing, because I mean I'm a massive sci-fi buff, and I think Spielberg knew something when he did Close Encounters, and he's done other stuff, but he also did, and hardly anybody's seen this, that he did a TV series called Taken, and there is a scene.
I saw that.
There is a scene in that, and it always stuck with me. And there is stories of this that go back, that these creatures, they disguise themselves as something innocent. And I think in the series, a little boy is in bed and a rabbit comes to the window. And I looked into this, and apparently that is a thing that happens. Like children, especially children, they will see something, whether it be a clown, whether it be a teddy bear that is alive, an animal, a pet that doesn't exist. When growing up, I used to see a dog, apparently, and also a white lady in my room. But I think that is whatever this phenomena is, it's sneaky, and it will disguise itself as something. And I think Spielberg knew about that.
I think he does. I saw Taken. It was really good. I've seen the Easter Bunny. Yeah, when I was a kid, I saw the Easter Bunny. So this is just an example of what gets called a screen memory. So what was actually happening? Was there actually a squirrel coming in my window? Highly unlikely, right? But this thing came onto my chest and stared into my eyes. Okay, well, that's very common. It's very common for a graze to stare into the eyes and to get you into that paralyzed state. So I don't remember where I was starting with this, but so much of the dream environment can mix in during abductions. And there are cases in the abduction research of hybrids and now even abductees so let's say I'm on a ship, I'm in their environment, I'm mostly under their control. Cases of hybrids staring into the abductee's eyes and making the abductee see something that's not there. And I don't know if they're practicing, if they're training for something or what, but they will make the abductee see a whole scene inside their heads that's not actually there. And so will the abductee then think, oh, I had a dream and I got taken into a ship and I was on the medical table. And the next thing I knew, I was jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. So all those things could actually be real and true. So a lot of times that dream material can come and mix in with the abduction. So hopefully to answer your question, it can be anywhere from feeling like a dream to the time I woke up on the table to 100% being awake. And I literally said, what the F is going on right now?
That could be going on, like, if it's going on with adults, you could easily, somebody going out on a night out, and then they think they've gone to bed, but the night's carried on. They end up getting, lucky, or that they meet somebody. The next thing you know, they're pregnant with Squidward. It's
with squid.
I could see how they do this. Well, I can't see how they could, but taking advantage of your most vulnerable time.
I was just going to say, are you outing yourself here of taking advantage of vulnerable women when they're drunk?
No, but well, I'm a married man. No, but I remember things as a kid that didn't, because I think something happened to me when I was a child, but I don't have enough memory. I don't have enough memory of it. And I spoke to many people that have had things happen, but the memory is so lucid, but they know that it's not a dream. And I think to happen to an adult, I find this fascinating. And for it still to be happening now. But what do you think they want?
Man, that's anybody's guess, right? So if you just look at the abduction research as a whole, one place that everyone can agree is it appears as though they are creating a hybrid race, by all appearances. Now, I try to be pretty careful on appearances because they can make us see just about anything they want us to see. They drop ideas into people's heads. There's a lot of lessons going on the ships where people are being indoctrinated and shown films of the end of the world and all this kind of stuff. But if you just look at the totality of everything that's going on, and there are researchers who believe, oh, they're doing this for our own good, and other researchers who say, absolutely not. This is not for our own good. But all of those researchers can agree. It appears that they're creating a race of hybrids. What they're going to do with that race of hybrids is, again, might be up for some debate, but it seems that the big picture when it comes to abductions is the creation of some type of a hybrid race between the aliens and humans. So that's what they're doing. That's what it appears that they're doing. That is probably what they spend the majority of their time on is and what are UFOs used for? What does the evidence show UFOs are being used for? It's abductions. They're taking people right out of their beds. They're doing the medical exams, they're creating their hybrids and then putting us back. So it seems that they spend an inordinate amount of time on this one goal.
Do you think it's evil what they're doing? Or do you think, do you think it's evil what they're doing?
Well, I do think it's evil. And so besides the abductions that they're doing, it gets kind of weird. So I started out thinking these aliens were our space brothers, and they're if they are here creating hybrids, it's to upgrade the human race, or maybe to upgrade their own race. Maybe something bad happened to them. But then after literally hundreds, I don't even know how many times I've been in their environment, I started realizing that that's actually all very spiritual as well. So it's not just that they're taking us to create hybrids. They have a goal in mind. And I have a whole long story. It took me like an hour to go over the story. I posted it on my YouTube channel, which isn't really a channel. It's just a bunch of my interviews together. And I told the story about how the aliens were actually very invested in me changing my religion. So that's a whole topic, maybe for another day. So at the same time that they're creating this hybrid race, they were also very interested in me not being a Christian, which I find fascinating, because they would have been content with me being anything else other than a Christian. Anything from a new age to like Gnosticism, straight into just Luciferianism. That was the range of where I was being led down. When I eventually rejected that, is when I was actually becoming a lot more lucid and understanding more what was happening to me. And I started pushing back during the abductions, but I was also pushing back on this whole idea of them wanting me to change my religion. And so at the end of this entire saga, I was actually punished very heavily for rejecting the religion the aliens wanted me to be. And so that's a whole other side of this that a lot of people don't want to address. We just want to think about nuts and bolts UFOs and aliens from other planets. And even if people get into the woo, they want to talk about, well, they must be here to upgrade us because they would have just taken us over already if they meant us any harm. And these, the hybrids that they might be making, it's got to be, human 2.0. They could just house a higher consciousness. They've been genetically engineering us for centuries, if not thousands of years. And so this is just the newest iteration. It's all for our own good. But they don't want to look at this really weird spiritual side. Why would an alien race care about my religion? And why would they care that for me to be any other religion other than Christianity? So there's something there. I've looked at it in all different ways, what their motives could have been. Could it have been a reverse psychology? All these different ways I've tried to break down what happened to me, and it's happened to many other people as well. So there's also a spiritual component. There
Quick
is
one.
this. Go ahead.
Do any of the aliens have horns?
Hands?
Horns.
Uh-oh.
Do any of them have pointy horns?
Oh, horns. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to say no, but in my journal
there's
here,
a reason why I'm asking that, because everything is saying there, like these aliens want you to forget your religion.
Yes.
To me, and I don't know if you said this on the last show. Have you ever said Christ's name during an abduction or anything like that? I can't remember if I asked you that.
I have, and it has not worked for me. Yeah.
Yes, I did ask you, because I remember you saying that it did not work. But you keep saying aliens, have you considered that it could be something different?
Oh, absolutely. I say aliens very loosely. I don't think they're ETs from other planets. So what happened to me was I started off believing, so I had the shadow people thing going, right? Totally separate. And then I had this weird alien thing going. But even when I say the word alien now, I don't really mean alien. I just use it very loosely because a lot of people call these things aliens and ETs. What I have come to understand through a lot of exposure to many different entities is I don't think these aliens are likely from outer space or from other planets, extraterrestrial. I really do think that they are from here. And I think all of the negative side plays on the same team. So I have been exposed to a demonic entity that was inside an alien body, like inside a reptilian body, and telling me its name was Baphomet. When I rejected the religious aspect of this, of them wanting me to be, at the far end of the spectrum was Luciferian. When I rejected that, I kind of got stepped up the food chain, and I started seeing other creatures with animal heads, and these creatures were very demonic. They were not alien, so to speak. They weren't grays, which a lot of people consider when people talk about aliens. A lot of times they're talking about grays, and so these were very different creatures. I've been involved in rituals and all kinds of weird woo that just doesn't fall into the alien agenda narrative, the extraterrestrial narrative. It's very spiritual. They are very much concerned with our souls, reverse engineering our souls, hijacking our souls, trapping our souls, all this stuff I was exposed to while I was in their environment. And it was just known. It was just known that this is what they were doing. And so while they're creating these hybrid bodies between aliens and humans, they're also very much concerned with who and what we are, above and beyond the physical body.
What is the soul trap exactly? What do you think they're trying to do? Are they jealous of the fact that we have a soul and they don't have a soul? What's the conclusion that you've come to when it comes to the soul trap?
I don't know exactly. My ideas are that we have something they don't have. I think it's some kind of connection, probably a connection to God, that they either don't have anymore. Maybe they had it at one time. They don't have it anymore. They're trying to get it back. That's kind of the sense that I got, or that I get. But specifically in late 2022 to early 2023, I was just immersed in this. And that's what I came away with. We have something that they want, and they will move heaven and earth to try to get it. And if they can't get it, they will try to trap us kind of with them in whatever this weird plane is that the plane of their existence. So when I look at what we call aliens, I see them as an intermediary between the spiritual realm and the physical realm. So the aliens they're metaphysical, and they're able to interact with us in the 3D, in the physical realm. Like they can physically come snatch your physical body out of your bed. But they can also just transfer your astral body or your consciousness. So they have a mastery over the astral or the spiritual realm, and a mastery of physics that I think we do have it, but we keep it locked up only for a special secret few people. And I think if you look up the hierarchy of what's behind the aliens, you're going to find non-corporeal beings. And a lot of times these beings are using the aliens as avatars, just like a human can be possessed by a demon. They're possessing the bodies of these creatures. So I think there's a lot going on. I don't have, 100% handle on it, but this is my takeaway, is that there are non-corporeal beings high up the food chain. And then you have these so-called aliens, and then you have us. And the aliens are just an intermediary, an expeditious way of dealing with us to carry out this agenda. Because imagine like a demon or a non-corporeal being trying to interact in the physical. It's temporary at best, right? I mean, we have stories of a non-corporeal being taking on physicality temporarily, but I don't think that's their natural state. And so I think they're using these aliens to accomplish their agenda. And right now, the agenda seems to be they care about souls and religion, and they care about creating these hybrids.
Do you think on any level that there is communication between like human beings and these things? No, I mean I don't just mean like I mean like towards an agreement type of thing. Do you think there are people out there which are like our leaders, maybe above our leaders, that know what's going on?
I think there is. There's just too much lore. And we have whistleblowers and abductees who have seen, I myself have seen I've seen what appears to be military people during my abductions. So I think at a very high level, at a very dark and secret level, I think there are some people who know exactly what this is and what's going on. I think that they have bargained for their own survival, perhaps for some promise of immortality. If these things have any control over the afterlife, I think people have been promised, perhaps a great second life or a great afterlife or a great reincarnation life. So I do. I think there's people at the top of our food chain who are very well aware and are trying to save themselves and maybe even their own families from this. The problem is they're making a deal with the devil, literally. I used to say that was kind of figurative, but it's literally a deal with the devil. It's like rubbing that genie lamp and asking for your 3 wishes. And by the time you're finished with your 3rd wish, you wish, you hadn't wished anything at all or hadn't entered into the bargain.
Have you, we keep hearing a date recently over the last, I'd say, year, maybe 2 years, and 2027 keeps coming up whenever it comes to UFO disclosure or something's going to happen, an asteroid's going to hit or anything like that. I don't know if you're aware of anything to do with 2027, if you're familiar with if that's got any significance.
So I'm aware of it. There's a few different things going on. There are people. So you have Chris Bledsoe saying things like when Iran and Israel start exchanging missiles or rounds or whatever, however he calls it, then the lady is going to show herself. He has a date also of, obviously, my own words would be corrected by their words, but he has a date, I believe, of Easter of 2026, where he says a new knowledge is coming upon mankind. He also has some interesting visions of an apocalypse. I've gotten those visions as well. So many abductees get visions of an apocalypse or some cataclysmic earth changes coming to us. There are people in the intelligence community who float this date of 2027. A lot of it is coming from abductees and from channeled information. But at the same time, they're also floating this. And the problem with the intelligence community is when they float this stuff and they are leaking stuff and they want it to get out into the community without it coming from them, you don't know if it's information, disinformation, or somewhere in between. So I wouldn't take any of this. I mean, I wouldn't bet the farm on any of this stuff, any of the dates you hear, or anybody, claiming certain dates. But for a while there, they were floating this idea of the James Webb Telescope had seen an armada,
yes,
a giant mothership, and then perhaps an armada following that ship. Well, we have abductees saying the same thing, that this mothership is coming to either engineer or watch, or a little of both, the end of the world, the end of the planet, that they might be saving some people, taking them off world. You have so much, so much gets put out there. It's so difficult to figure out what's true, what's not, where the lies are, what they want us to believe. Anytime you're getting hit with intelligence or counterintelligence or any kind of a leak like that, you have to be looking for what's their motive, what do they want us to think, why would they want us to think that way? Is there some truth to it? Because there usually is. Usually on anything that gets put out by the intelligence community, there's going to be some basis of truth in it. And then they spin the rest of it for their own purposes. So the idea of cataclysmic earth changes has been in the abduction research since the beginning of time. And we have abductees who have been supposedly shown the end of the world. And some of those abductees are now past. So there were people in the 1990s who were told, this is going to happen in your lifetime. This is coming in the next 5 years. And whatever this is, that's coming. David Jacobs calls it the change. And this will be a time, supposedly, when the aliens will be living among us, when the mantids have taken over and all humans are subservient. And so speaking of that hierarchy of beings, You have the non-corporeal beings. You have the mantids, the reptilians, all the different types of grays, and then you have the hybrids, and then you have abductees. And what comes last on that hierarchy is humans who have no interest in. And so supposedly they are prepping for a time of a literal planetary takeover. Will that ever happen? I don't know. Is it just propaganda? I don't know. I know abductees who have been told that someday you're going to know your place. And it's going to be at the bottom of the food chain. It's not going to be at the top. So between the cataclysmic visions and the propaganda they show on the ships, they show big video screens of the end of the world. And what they show during this propaganda is that the aliens are either going to save us from this or somehow avert it, or perhaps take some people off world to save us from this cataclysm. So,
when you see this on a
is out there.
screen, sorry, when you see
What's
this on
that?
a screen, when you see this on a screen, does it look like our tech, or does the screen look? I'm probably going to explain this really badly. Does the screen look like something that like you'd see on a Samsung TV or whatever, or does it look like alien technology screen?
So I don't know, because this is coming from other abductees. So the screen
Right, okay,
part's
sorry.
coming from other abductees. I have gotten the dreams, the cataclysmic dreams I've been having my whole life. Like when I was 15, I became aware that there was going to be a pole shift in my lifetime. So is that true, or is that propaganda? We now have some scientists out there claiming that we are actually in the middle of an electromagnetic excursion as we speak. So all of this stuff fits together in a giant puzzle, and I don't think anybody really knows. So 2027, are we going to get disclosure? Are we going to get an armada of ships? Is the date just going to come and go? I mean, dates come and go, you guys. These dates have come and gone on how many times? And again, I want to remind people there are abductees who were certain roles after the change, crowd control and getting people onto ships, getting people into restricted areas, containing people, basically. Abductees being trained for this, some of them are dead, some of them are gone. So this plan seems like the long game, and perhaps it's fluid. Maybe they don't know the exact day that they want this to happen. Maybe they're also waiting for the cataclysm, to take advantage of. There's some thought that before any type of pole change or electromagnetic excursion that is severe enough to take down, say, the electrical grid. I mean, think about what society will look like if that happens. And are the aliens going to come and appear as our saviors? I mean, that's what they say they're going to do to some people, but we just don't know. So I won't be surprised to see something happen in 2027, but I won't be surprised to see that date come and go. And here we are still waiting for what the aliens are claiming that they're going to do.
Maybe they just know we're gonna, you look at AI now and it can predict things really well. Maybe the aliens knew 1,000 years ago these little weirdos are gonna end up killing themselves in 1,000 years.
Maybe, or maybe
we're gonna have to like help out here.
Maybe they're the ones orchestrating that behind the scenes. But
that's the thing that I
human affairs.
Yeah, that's the thing that I really struggle with, though, is what would be the benefit to them just taking us out? Because if they wanted to take us out, they could just take us out like that. If they've got that sort of technology, create a virus, that actually works this time, and wipe us out.
Are you saying why don't they do that? Well, they need us for something, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it like a farm or farm animals, they seem to treat us in a very similar way. So I think they need at least some of us. I think the hybrid breeding program has been going on now for several decades, if not, 100 years or more, maybe, at least the modern day version of it. And I think they could get to the point where they don't need us at all. If they have their hybrids engineered where the hybrids are able to do everything humans normally would do for them, but the hybrids are a much more controlled species than we are, then maybe they do wipe us out in the end. Maybe they end up with just the hybrids.
Do you think about one of the ideas about the hybrids could be, if like you talk about, this seems to be something that's connected to like our soul, like our like non-physical form. I wonder if part of the breeding program is to try and insert a soul back into that race.
Lee, knock your mic up a tiny bit, mate.
I agree with you on that. When I came away with my own understanding of what was going on, it was that the hybrids were being used as an ultimate soul trap. So there's something to do with the human soul that needs some type of a genetic capacity type. So it's a genetic match. So perhaps a human soul can't just go into, a squirrel for any length of time. There's no match there, and it just gets pushed out. So I think there is something to that. And when I came away, I think I spoke about this on Tony's podcast on my first confessionals interview, that the hybrids to me were the ultimate soul trap, because hybrids are still, they have some human emotion. A lot of them are actually on the spectrum of being all the way up to sociopathic, from narcissistic to sociopathic, but they are much more controlled.
My wife is one of them.
She's a hybrid. They're much more controlled than we are. They don't have the same type of desires we have for autonomy, for love. There's certain capacities humans have that make us human, that make us different from the aliens. And so now that they have found, in my opinion, they have now found that middle ground where they have, if you have too much human, the hybrid's going to be out of their control. But if you have too much hybrid, they're not going to be able to put a human soul inside of it. So I think that they have found that match. And I think that ultimately, if they can get human souls into these hybrid bodies, it's just ultimate control. Because the hybrids aren't allowed to talk about God. They're not allowed to talk about religion. These are things I gather from other abductees, and they're much more under their control than we are as humans. So I think you might be right, Lee, and at least that's the information that I came away with, that they were going to use these hybrids as the ultimate soul trap. I might have mentioned on the last podcast, why are they still, with all of their technology, why are they still using human women at all? So why do they need a human woman, even if it's down to, I think it's down, at least in some cases, to 4 to 6 weeks, even 6 to 8 weeks. It used to be 3 or 4 months. They would leave the embryo with a human woman, and now they're taking it even sooner. So why do they need us at all for that very first spark of life? Why do they need us? Why aren't they just doing that in a petri dish and then growing it in the vat? Why are they using human women? There's got to be a metaphysical reason for that. And I think it has to do with attracting the human soul to that child.
It's interesting you say that they've brought down the gestation period, because that really does point towards technology, doesn't it? Because it points to the developing of technology over time.
Yes, they've developed their own technology over time. Imagine if they started out being ahead of us. They didn't stagnate. They have been developing their technology side by side as we're developing our own technology. And they're learning lessons.
Where do you think the modern sort of disclosure movement fits in with this? Because I'm highly skeptical of the modern disclosure movement and what's being put out, and I always put it down to, at some point, the powers that be decided that they wanted my mum and dad to believe in aliens when they've spent the last 20, 30, 40 years ridiculing the subject. Where does that tie in?
I don't know where it ties in or how it's going to tie in. If you think about the aliens themselves, they don't need us for disclosure. They could just show up, right? They could show up at any minute, anytime they want to make themselves known, they can do that. So they don't need us for that. So could they be working through humans toward a goal or for some purpose? Absolutely. I think that's what they do. But where is our current disclosure movement anyway? It just blew up. I mean, it blew up a couple of weeks ago with that last fake photo that was shown by Elizondo. And then within a couple of days, he and some others were off, the boards, and other people were taking their place. And he's saying he's getting out of ufology, behind the scenes to other people, not to me. I've never met the man.
Talking about the UFO over the it was
the
just
light.
He's talking about that picture.
I think it was the last one.
He showed an alien.
Something.
Yeah, he showed an alien the other day, I think, as well.
Oh, well, that was a whole other story. Yeah, that was supposedly a picture he was showing to congressmen and other people about an alien or a hybrid body. So I don't know what to think about that. I look at him and I think he's intelligent. He's a patriot. He has a lot of counterintelligence training. Would he make a mistake like that on accident? I don't know. I can't imagine after the first photograph he saw that was debunked, or that he showed that was debunked, that he would make another mistake in front of Congress. It seems far-fetched. I mean, I've heard things like he was becoming a liability and they wanted to cut him loose, so someone set him up. But I don't know. But where does that leave disclosure right now? It leaves it in the trash. So the credibility that the movement had before, just a few weeks ago, I think was much higher than it is today. And so where does that leave us? Was that done on purpose? Was it purposeful? Was it an accident? Is there a bigger plan out there? Is there something more at play behind the scenes that we're unaware of? Most likely, yes. So I don't know where disclosure will fit into this. I've heard the rumors that we have a deadline, right? That we have to disclose to the human race prior to them showing up, whether it's 2027 or whenever. I just don't know. I don't know what to say about disclosure. I don't spend a lot of time on it because I think ultimately if the aliens choose to show themselves, they don't need us and they're going to do it. I think disclosure, at least partially, has to do with our own technology as well. I think there's a bit of a cover-up going on with the amount of technology that humans have currently in our human possession that would blow the minds of most people. I think that some of that tech has kind of gone underground and it's been taken over by private contractors. I think that it's probably out of the control of our military, and they might be trying to get that back, or they might be running cover for our own tech when they say, I mean, I've heard the silliest things like that. I had someone write to me not too long ago who said that cover on the front of Elizondo's book is our tech and everyone knows it. But because they are not going to release classified information or classified tech or something that's still classified, they're just putting out images that they know are not classified and that are actually our tech. And everybody knows it. So I don't even know what to say about disclosure anymore. But I think at least some of it has to do with covering up for human technology.
Do you think do you think that those mummies are real?
I think some of those mummies will be real. Yeah, I think some of them. I know that there's a lot of hoaxes, there's a lot of replicas, there's a lot of grave robbing and all this kind of stuff going on. But I think some of them will end up being real.
And do you think it could be linked in with what you see?
It could be. It could be an early iteration. So remember, I think the aliens are actually hybrids themselves. I think the Greys are probably hybrids between maybe the mantids and humans. So how many iterations of that went on? We are only seeing right now in the last 90, 100 years, or the modern day abduction research, is showing this combination of the gray and the human is what they seem to be doing. But how did we get the grays? How did we get the reptilians? How did we get the mantids? They all look hybridized to me, at least to some extent. So just imagine the hundreds or thousands of years that this could have been going on, that is now maybe, perhaps it's coming to a boiling point. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's going to keep going on, and you and I will come and go, and people will still be dealing with this hundreds, if not thousands of years from now, still trying to figure it out.
Well, this is something I've always thought when it comes to there's clearly something going on in the world. There's some of the way the way people experience things, they see things. There's been stories, like we say, about governments and things being involved with this, like crash retrievals and all that sort of stuff. But I always think that the timeline of whatever the play is seems to outstretch human lives like by so much. And humans are impatient animals. There's no way that like 100 years ago, like one of the Rothschilds said, right, I've got a plan, but I probably won't see the end of it. Like they're just not going to do that. But the idea that this has been going on for like thousands of years and it'll just continue to go on thousands of years, like we are just some sort of meat soul farm, is fucking terrifying, isn't it?
It is terrifying. I had a space this last week, I think it's been within a week or so, where we had some remote viewers on who were willing to talk about what they're seeing when it comes to the soul trap that we might be in. So when it comes to remote viewing, I like to always tell people, when it comes to remote viewing, understand that remote viewers, just like the rest of us, anytime you're engaged in any kind of a contact modality, which remote viewing is, we can be influenced by entities. So anytime we're looking at channeling and divination of any kind, including remote viewing and CE5, all the different ways that we try to contact the other side, mediumship, we can come under the influence of negative entities. However, there are groups of remote viewers who have been working on projects for a very long time, 10 years or more. And the professional remote viewers are supposedly all seeing the same thing, but most of them will not discuss it. And it's something like what you just said, Lee, that's terrifying. It's the idea that the negative entities are actually in charge of this entire planet. It's called, the short version is called prison planet. So you have the idea of archons have us somehow, human souls, trapped on this planet, that there's some kind of a grid around the planet, and that when we die, we actually get lured or sucked into the light and we get recycled against our will. Sometimes it's a trick. Hey, you didn't do so good that time. You got to go back, oh, you got to learn this lesson, or you really screwed up, or, sometimes there's even bargains made. You're going to be rich, you're going to get this or that. And they recycle us and then mind wipe us. And here we are, we come back and we just forget lifetime after lifetime. And maybe me and you have been here 100 times or more, 1,000 times. And it's just a never ending cycle. So the remote viewers are seeing this. In fact, they're actually seeing not only this, but the worst part of it is they actually believe that we're living in some kind of a simulation right now, and our physical bodies are actually hooked up very much like the Matrix, where our physical bodies are in a vat. It might even be just a brain or an arm or something floating around. We're stuck into the Matrix, and that what me and you are living right now is just some type of virtual reality. So this is something that the remote viewers are seeing, and it's a lot of them. Most won't discuss it, but the ones who will are terrified. And, they've been through that ontological shock. And if this is true, what does this mean for me? This is something very similar. The aliens, so-called, did something very similar to me in 2022 to 2023, when I told you they wanted me on that Luciferian path. This was one of the things they wanted me to believe, that we were in a prison planet and that we have, there's no way out and there's no hope. And I think that's by design. So could there be some truth to this idea? The Gnostics have been writing about it for a very long time. The idea of archons perhaps tricking us after death, being able to reroute us, being able to hijack the natural death process and where we're supposed to end up. I think that there will be some truth to that. But the idea... Go ahead.
Do you know what you just said there with, and it just brought into my head about them not going into the light and getting recycled? Do you remember the film Poltergeist? So I've just looked this up now, and I thought maybe it's not Spielberg that did it, because I said earlier Spielberg has his hands in everything. Now, the 1982 film Poltergeist was directed by Todd Hopper, but with a significant creative input and involvement from producer and writer Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Well, there's quite the conspiracy about I can't remember the name of the child that was in it, but she died, didn't she? There's quite the conspiracy theory around the child and Steven Spielberg.
That's wild.
Oh, yeah, that is wild. I remember reading about something about that a while ago.
I just remember the whole thing. Don't go into the light, Caroline. Don't go into the light. Stay away from the light. Yeah. Sorry.
But what if that's the fake news of it? We don't know.
What if that's the swerve?
We don't know. Anytime we're in their world, in their environment, and they own it, we do not. Anytime we're tapping into our subconscious mind, or whatever people want to call remote viewing, this is a realm we are not skilled in, and we are not as familiar with as they are. So the other side of the prison planet is, how do we know that they don't want us to think they run this entire show and there's no hope and there's no way out? How do we know they don't want us to think, don't go to the light? So anytime we're dealing with this information, we have to be looking at the big picture. We can't take it at face value. We can't just say, okay, the archons on the planet, there's no way out. I'm pretty well screwed. That's not the proper response to information when we're getting it from these other realms. So that's definitely out there, and it's pretty scary. I got extremely black-pilled and went into a bit of a depression, and this has happened to the remote viewers as well. People will come across this information, especially if you're convinced that it's 100% true, which in hindsight, I now know most of what they say is not true, but there could be some truth to it, but the totality of it is probably not true. To just imagine thinking that the whole world is screwed and there's really no point to this life because it's just a loosh farm and we're just going to get recycled against our will and come back, as something else. And there's really no point to any of it except for just to be feeding grounds for negative entities.
So you see, the terrifying thing with that was if that's the case, and like everything that surrounds us is a construct, then you go, well, what if religion's a construct? What if that's the idea of giving us some sort of all powerful like God? Is like it's just something to keep us going. It's a carrot on a stick. Like what if this is literally what we've been engineered for?
So I hear you, and I've actually been in that mindset myself, and it was all orchestrated by the aliens. So what I can say is this is what they want us to think. They want us to believe this. So the aliens want us to believe they're our creators. Well, if they created us, what are they doing right now? Why are they having to kidnap human women and breed them and genetically engineer them and breed them with a gray? So that makes no sense at all. Could they have been tampering with our genetics for thousands of years? Probably. I mean, that's probably what they're the best at. I don't think they can create anything out of nothing. And so they want us to believe they created us. They want us to believe they created all of our world religions as a control system. And again, if you get really far down the rabbit hole, there's no hope. We're just going to keep getting recycled, and we're just basically their servants and they own us. But if you really step back from that, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And when I had my own experience with the aliens, I was confronted with the what appeared to be a fact that they wanted me to be anything except for a Christian. And so what did Jesus tell us? That he came to set the captives free and that he was the way out. So what if, through the way it's presented in the Bible, maybe it gets even deeper than that. Maybe there's something metaphysical going on there with faith. It might even come down to allegiance. We have stories of all these gods, these baby gods running around the planet and trying to get our allegiance and trying to get worship from us. What if it comes down to allegiance? Whatever it comes down to, the aliens did not want me to believe in the Jesus Christ of the Bible. That might be uncomfortable for some people, and that's okay. I'll just tell you that's where I'm at. There's a reason for that. And I've looked at all of the different reasons, the reverse psychology, all the motives that there could possibly have been. And I'm just right back to that's the way out of here. If they control this place, if there are archons, controlling this place, that's the way out. And that's kind of where I landed on it. I don't pretend to know how or why or even to be able to understand the whole thing. But there is a reason they want us to think they created us, they own us, they created all of our religions, and we're nothing but living in an ant farm. There's a reason they want us to think that. And it's just black pill. Like, what's the point of life if you're just here as a food source for the aliens and there's no way out?
I definitely think there's a concerted effort to keep. I mean, just look now. There's going to be a bunch of terror soon because it would appear the US is going to strike Iran soon. And then I believe. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think these things happen. I think lots of people will be injured and die, and it's all going to be very very horrible. But I think these things are orchestrated to keep us in a sense of dis-ease, to keep us to keep us depressed, to keep making that negative energy. Because I can't help think that something harvests that. Because it's not a good way. I've said I've said before in the podcast, this is not a good way if you want to imprison people and just keep them and use them. It makes no sense not to keep them happy. You would keep them happy.
What if they just kept us happy?
Then they wouldn't.
Then we'd want to be here.
Look, yeah. You just like there's a reason why we know the best way to keep farm animals is free range. We know that works best. So why wouldn't they just? Everybody would be a rock star in this stage. Everybody would have all of the things they want. We could go around now and again. A couple of us ago, did you have like a really weird dream about getting probed? And you're like, yeah, I did, but it's fine because like what we're doing out here is great.
Right.
Yeah, I don't understand why there's this effort to keep us in this state of desperation.
Well, I mean, it's in the lore. They're feeding off of it. That they're feeding off of the negative human emotions. So that part would make sense. But they can also supposedly feed off of bliss as well. Have you heard the aliens want us to raise our vibration, right? Just raise your vibration, send your consciousness out into the sky and just love everything. They can feed off that as well. So it gets super weird, you guys.
Speaking of feeding, because and this is freaking me out now. I'm just the amount of like, if you think of like chicken farms, cow farms and all that, you see all these cows go in and they slaughter them, loads of chickens, and it always seems like there's more animals than there is humans because we just eat and eat and eat and eat and eat. What if that's the same with them? Because you mentioned before the show about them eating us, and I said I want to talk about that. So
Yeah, so that's the part most people don't want to talk about. So it's funny that you do want to talk about it.
Well, the mantis really freaked me out. I hope they're friendly, but I've seen a mantis eat.
You've seen a mantis eat. Yeah, I have a video posted on my feed and on Twitter of a mantis ripping a lizard's face off. First they paralyze it, and then he rips its face off. So I probably get the most pushback on the things that I say, at least on my own platform on Twitter, when I bring up the possibility of the aliens eating us for breakfast. And it's something that's in the lore, it's in the abduction research. I've talked to abductees who claim to have seen it with their own eyes. Ted Rice has seen the mantids eating. We're going to get kicked off YouTube for this. Human fetuses. Carla Turner, who is an abduction researcher, was aware of cases where fetuses that were rejected by the aliens were just put into a blender and used almost as a smoothie, milkshake. I mean, it gets really bad, you guys. And that's just two. I'll just say two. I myself had an experience where I was told the aliens are eating us. So it's out there. I would not discount it. If you look at the mantids, if the mantids are hybrids, or if they're even in the mantid line of the mantids we see on Earth, you see what they do. You see they paralyze their prey and they rip their heads off. So are we saying that the mantids are vegans? I mean, if the mantids aren't vegans, what are they eating? Any number of things, potentially humans. And if you believe some of the abductees have seen them doing it, and it's more than one. So I can leave it there, but it's not a pretty picture.
I was kind of hoping it would just be that's the reason why they keep taking cows, but it turns out we're probably tastier.
I mean, if they're feeding, so the mantids have been known to feed off of human energy and off of human bodies. And so they're kind of getting a double dose if humans can do both for them.
Do you know anything? Have you looked into mantid? Because I've not. So like, are they mentioned in our history? Giant mantids, like you'll hear about giants. You'll hear about little people coming from the sky, and you see things on the Inca ruins. Is that you even see what looks like reptilian statues holding babies? Have you seen anything of that? Because I don't recall seeing anything of the mantids. Have you seen anything?
So I haven't. There is that video that made its rounds, and I think there were some researchers talking to some indigenous folk. I don't remember what country they were from, and they were shown a gray, and they said, "Oh yeah, those are the ant people." I don't know if you guys saw that video.
Yes.
And then you've seen the drawings of what looks like ant people with antenna and stuff. But you bring up a really good point about the mantids. I wrote to Gary Wayne not too long ago, and he's pretty good about getting back to emails. And I asked him that same question. I asked him, where do we see mantids in the myths and in the lore or in the caves? Where do they fit in? When did they come about? Because I would love to have that answer myself. So when he gets back to me, I think he will. He's pretty good about it. I'll let you know, because it's a good question.
Maybe they're new. I mean, because you see the greys, but we see the like lizard people, but not the giant
the lizards
insects.
For sure. I think when it comes to the mantids, I don't have a lot of just personal experience with mantids other than them putting their face into my head sometimes, and I have a couple of obscure, subtle. But I don't have conscious memory.
On that. Just expand on that. What you mean about them putting the face into your head?
Sure, I'll do that. But I don't have any conscious memories of just being face to face with a mantid. So I rely on other people when it comes to mantids.
Sure.
I might just be sitting here minding my own business, and I'll get a flash of a picture just impressed into my visual field, but it's the imagination field. So you guys could picture an apple in your head right now, right? You could probably see it clear as day. Some people can do it, some people can't, but it's there. So I get pictures just sent right into my head, and it comes with an energy, and I know it's coming from outside of myself. I'll just get pictures flashed into my head, and sometimes it will happen before an abduction. I'll get a mantid face or a gray, and they just show up in a picture right in my head. And it's almost like, is that them just tagging into me to figure out where I'm at and what I'm doing and what the plan is? Or are they sending it almost taunting? Sometimes it feels like that. So it could be either way, but I get that on a lot of different things, not just a mantid head or a gray head. It's most frequently a gray head, but I get all kinds of different visions and stuff as well. Not just that. Like I could just right now see a comet come flying and hit the earth. So yeah, go ahead.
I know what you mean. I had it's not something that's happened like a huge amount of times. It's only sober. It's something that's, I think, it's only happened once. I can remember this is only maybe three months ago, and it was as I was trying to go to sleep. I was lying in bed. I had my eyes closed, and I had a flash of, I was still awake. I hadn't gone to sleep. A flash of just a terrifying, like, grotesque face. Like, it was just a terrifying face, and it freaked me out. So I got up, I turned the light on for a bit, went to the toilet, the usual things you do when you get a bit freaked out when you go, calm myself down, decided to go back to sleep. Didn't happen again, but what I did find very weird was I closed my eyes. I couldn't make that image in my head, in my mind again. I was trying to think of it, and I couldn't make it again. So I know exactly what you mean.
I know what you mean with that as well. I've had a similar thing to that, and you try to think what it looked like,
and it won't flash in. You can't make it flash into your mind like it did.
Do you think they're all on the same team? These entities, these creatures.
I do think they're all on the same team. I get called an exo-racist for that comment, but yeah, I do. I think they're all on the same team.
Incredible.
I mean, they've been seen all working together side by side on the ships. Reptilian, Mantid, Gray, Nordic, all working together, all on the ships, all toward carrying out abductions and this weird hybrid breeding program, whatever this is that they're doing. I think genetically these aliens are a certain way, and I don't think there's a lot of veering from that path. So imagine just genetically a mantid on Earth. What does it do? It's programmed to eat its mate and make more babies. They're kind of programmed, and they run by instinct. They're not humans. And so people call me a racist for saying that I think all the aliens are bad, or I think they're all negative, or I think they all have a negative agenda. And I try to explain to them, if you've never been in their environment, that's easy for you to say. But once you've been in their environment and you understand the control they have and the hive-mindedness that goes along, it's much easier to understand that having some renegade mantid who decides to be a good guy, is going to be much more unlikely than having a renegade human who decides to be a good guy, maybe to save the human race. That's kind of what we're all about, right? That's not what they're all about. It's kind of like taking an alligator and trying to make an alligator be a kitty cat or a dog. It's not going to happen. Genetically, they're pre-wired for certain things. And I look at the aliens that way. They're not humans. People say, again, that's racist. Okay, well, I don't want to be forcibly bred with something that's not human. forcibly breed me with something that's human, and I'm going to be pissed. But I'm certainly not going to want to be force bred with an animal or another species. They're not humans, and they do not act like humans. They are not programmed like humans, and they are all just loyal to whatever this mission is, which is abductions and creating hybrids. And whatever their plan is, that they claim is to take over the planet, but who knows if that's even their plan? We don't even know that that's true. We have to leave open possibility that that's not even true.
This feels like a public service announcement I didn't think I'd have to make.
Public service announcement.
Yeah. But if you're online and you find yourself halfway through a tweet where you're accusing someone of being an exo-racist against aliens, it's time to shut the laptop. Shut the laptop and go outside.
We have been so gaslit by these entities. So people are channeling these very same entities, telling us, oh yeah, the mantids are the good guys. They're here to upgrade our consciousness. Well, they're the ones telling us this while they're snatching us out of our beds at night. I mean, that just makes no sense to me. Why do we make excuses for what's going on? I have a hard time with it.
I've often thought that about the push, and I've had a couple of interesting experiences with it, but with the push for psychedelics, because there's been this modern day revival of psychedelics, and I've always thought to myself, if there is a DMT realm, whatever you want to call it, which has got malevolent entities in it, that's exactly what I'd do as well. Exactly what I'd do is when they came, I'd be dead nice. Say, yeah, come back, bring your friends.
Exactly. That's exactly. They want us dissociated, and there are different ways to make it happen. And psychedelics is one of them. Could there be some healing properties to it? Sure, but it's always a double-edged sword. So I'd be careful with it.
Do you think that the greys, and I've heard this being brought up quite a few times, people seem to think that they could be some sort of android, or do you think it is an actual, from what you've seen, because you've seen a flash of the greys, do you think it looks like a living creature?
I think, that's a tough one. So I think they're biological, and I also think they're fairly hive-minded. So a lot of times I'll refer to them as just, a biological robot or something like that. But that doesn't tell the big picture, because I've also felt fear from them. So that one, when I woke up and saw that one standing in my bedroom, it was afraid. It did not want me to get up and do anything to it. They're actually kind of fragile. If you were to go toe to toe with one, they're not very strong. They're kind of fragile, and they do have at least some type of fear. So I don't know what they are. I think they're an interesting mix. I think they're probably a hybrid. There's been abductees who have seen bodies of greys just hanging up like meat suits. So maybe they could be avatars for something else or some other kind of consciousness at times. So I think the answer for me is I don't know. They seem very task oriented. They're very mission oriented. If I'm dealing with hybrids and I'm not being cooperative, they'll bring a gray out just to get the mind control and the psychic power. The greys have much more psychic power than the hybrids do. You can imagine once you mix human in, their powers are actually going down. Their psychic power is going down. And so they have a lot of psychic output, a lot of psychic power. They're capable of mind control. There have been times I've thought, do these greys just have a Neuralink in there? Are they just robots? And other times, like the time I felt fear from one of them. So I'm kind of in the middle. I don't know. Now, the idea of that thing feeling fear, that could have just been a projection. It might have wanted me to think it was afraid so that I would have some sympathy for it. So they do that as well. They're always putting emotions onto people. You'll hear people say, oh, I had this most amazing and wonderful experience with the aliens. Well, that's all fake emotions that they're actually putting putting onto us. They project it onto us. So I don't know. I've called them biological androids, but man, thinking of them hanging up in meat suits as clones, people have seen that as well. So maybe it's something in between. I don't know.
Have you... I'm going to put this now. Have you, like, through your journey with this, have you ever thought, why me? Why are they doing it to me? And also, have you gone and got yourself checked out for any sort of implant? Because you hear about these abductees with the little pieces of metal in them. I don't know if I don't know if you've ever got yourself X-rayed or anything like that. Or...
I actually just recently had an MRI. I mean, I don't know what an MRI picks up, but I recently had one and it was totally normal. So I don't know if implants get picked up by MRIs, but for whatever that's worth, I had a normal MRI not too long ago, just a few months ago. When it comes to why me, I think it's just, I think it mostly has to do with bloodlines and genetics. I think it comes down to that. I think that there are a lot of whatever it is they're trying to mix. They're trying to mix humans with the grays to get their hybrids, and they're just looking for certain types of genetics. It's probably genetics that they've been messing with for a very long time. Maybe this is a really long program where they started messing with our human genetics, 1,000 years ago, and they've just been following the bloodline until they could start creating these hybrids. I don't know what it is about certain bloodlines that they're interested in. I mean, I know in the lore, you have the MC1R gene. You've got things like Rh negative factor that they are supposedly looking for. And then recently, it seems that a lot of abductees might have a high degree of Neanderthal DNA. And that's where I would kind of fall in. So I just come down to that. I just come down to it's probably bloodlines and genetics. If there's anything to do, if there's any truth to the afterlife or to reincarnation, if that's not all a lie, because by the way, aliens have been seen downloading fake past lives into abductees. So if reincarnation is true at all, are they looking for some type of soul essence, to breed with? I don't know. But I think it just mostly comes down to there's going to be something in the DNA and something in genetics that are more compatible with what they're trying to create. And unfortunately, I happen to fall in probably into a long line of people they've been doing this to for a very long time.
Well, maybe it's the amount of cycles they can get out of people. The amount of cycles they can get like through the soul trap is the more valuable you are.
Well, it could be that they saw me being disruptive, in this life. If there's only one life or multiple lives, it could have been that they saw me being disruptive, potentially disruptive. And so I got some extra attention, maybe. But when it comes down to it, my siblings are seeing the shadow people, and I know what that's about now. So I've got granddaughters. I've got a niece going through this same thing, what appears to be the same thing that I'm going through. So again, is there just, to me, it's going to come down to DNA. I think it's going to come down to certain compatibilities of DNA and other things, perhaps, that's more compatible with their project, which is creating these hybrids. And it's something they've probably been cultivating for a long time. So yeah, could there be some soul thing in there? Could there be some weird, people talk about soul agreements and soul contracts and all this weird stuff? Maybe, but all that information comes from the aliens, so I'm going to be suspicious of it. What do I see them doing? I see that abductions are generational and they happen in families and they go on for generations. So that says DNA to me. or in some type of genetic compatibility.
Just quickly before we start to wrap this up, I want to ask this right at the very beginning of the podcast, but now you brought the shadow people up again. It's just wrapped nicely round for me. You mentioned Hat Man at the beginning of the episode. How did the Hat Man come to you, and did you see his face?
I did not see his face. So the first time I saw Hat Man was awake in 3D. I was 17 years old, and I didn't know he was called Hat Man at the time. I just saw a very large and very, very solid shadow appear in my doorway, and it was wearing a cape and a hat, and it was so tall it actually had to bend down to get into the doorway. And it was such a weird thing. It's very difficult to describe shadow people. Sometimes I see shadow people that are very pixelated and you can almost kind of see through them. But in this case, it was very solid. It was like a solid black mass moving toward me. And it got on top of me. This was one of the times, this was my first experience with Hat Man. And this was a time when I thought, this is it. Like, I'm going to die. It's going to kill me, whatever this is. And then another time I saw Hat Man. I've only seen Hat Man 2 or 3 times. The very last time I might have seen him, I'm not certain. The second time I saw Hat Man, I had been attacked by shadow people. And this was during a time when I was getting pretty good at getting out of the paralysis. And it was like a pixelated shadow person got me into a hold or paralyzed. And I got out of it and I thought, I just got out of being paralyzed. So, F off. And the next thing I knew, it came and ripped me out of the top of my head. And I was in most likely the astral realm in a maze. And I was walking through the maze and I knew it was some kind of a problem that I had to solve or something I was supposed to do in the maze. And I walk by and there's another version of Hat Man sitting in the corner. And in this case, he was wearing a suit and he looked like a gangster suit with a gangster hat. And he was sitting in the corner with his legs crossed. And I had kind of passed by him. And I don't think I was supposed to see him or notice that he was there watching me. And I realized he was there. And I went back and I actually started yelling at him. And I started saying, this is all your fault. You're the one doing this. And that this time I'm going through a pretty traumatic period of abductions. And I just started yelling at him, this is your fault. You're the one who did this, kind of a what's your effing problem type of an attitude. And I got sent back to my body in just a heartbeat. And that was the second time I saw Hat Man. The third time was the night before, and I'm not certain about this one, but it was pretty suspicious to me. The night before I recorded Tony Merkel's podcast, I was staying in a hotel room, and I woke up in the middle of the night to some sound. I think a dog was barking or something, and I got up and I looked out the window. I don't know why, and there was a man sitting below my hotel room. So I looked out a sliding glass window and I was on, I think, the second floor. And right below me was a man and he was smoking a cigarette and he was in a shadow, but whatever this was just projecting out and wanted me to believe that he was a malevolent, like nefarious character. And it came across as a Hat Man type character. Now, I don't know for certain what that was, but it was wide awake 3D. Like I got up out of bed and walked to the window for whatever reason to see this thing, but it wanted me to think it was Hat Man, whatever it was. It to me, it had the appearance more of a Men in Black type of appearance, and especially with the cigarette. But at any rate, those are my experiences with Hat Man. So it's only a couple. The shadow people have been much more prevalent in my life.
It's crazy you said that because I that's even freaked me out, Lee, after your experience.
Yeah, when you said that you were pulled out, did you feel like a scoop in a pole, like thing?
Oh, I don't know about the scoop. I might not have been registering a scoop, but it yanked me out of the top of my head so fast I could not even think straight. I didn't even know they were able to
instant
do
acceleration.
that. Oh,
like
I was
almost like you were thrown. Yeah.
Yep. And then I got whipped into the maze, and I just thought, what the, I thought I was like a badass for being able to get out of being paralyzed, and that thing showed me really quick that I was not. So, have one of you guys had that?
I have, and
we spoke about this. I don't know if we spoke about it on the show.
Before. No, we spoke about this on the show. And there was a whole thing led up to this, like in the sort of astral realm, and I was face to face with Hat Man, and the reason I asked if you saw his face was it didn't have any facial features when I saw it. Almost like a mannequin. It almost looked like furry and smooth, like a fabric instead of a face.
Oh wow!
It was pretty weird.
So Hat Man appears in many different ways. If you guys ever talked to Heidi Hollis or had her on your show, she has a whole catalog. She's written books about Hat Man, shadow people. She has a bunch of information on how he appears differently to different people. And she thinks
an X handle or something, and we'll
yeah, for sure will. She thinks he's the embodiment of Satan himself. Like he's pretty high up the food chain, whatever he is. Ollie, I think you asked me about horns earlier.
Yes.
And I don't want to. I'm actually doing a quick search right now. Because there's these creatures I see. I know we're wrapping up. There was these creatures I see, and they look like the Stranger Things monster. I call them reptilians. And the short story is that they're a reddish pinkish color, which is very unusual. It's again not something you would expect to see or expect someone to say when it comes to these reptilians. And I later came across a gentleman I've already mentioned by the name of Ted Rice, who is the subject of Masquerade of Angels, Carla Turner's book. I later ended up chatting with him. I'm actually in a group chat with him, and we talk a lot. And I ended up hearing one of his own stories about how he had seen something very similar. Now, this creature I'm talking about, one of them called themselves Baphomet. And in one of Ted's abduction experiences, he found himself in a place that he thought of as hell. And this creature, very similar to a creature I've seen, because we've now exchanged information and photos and such. I believe he said that his creature did have horns, and it appeared to be in charge of the realm that he considered hell. So super weird, super creepy stuff happening. Not just aliens and spaceships creating hybrids. It runs the gamut, and Hat Man's in there as well. I want to say Ted Rice has seen Hat Man turn into a tall gray on the ships, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow. I mean, I didn't have anywhere near the experience that Lee did, but like you went into the puzzle bit that got me. I'm surprised you didn't like solving the puzzle.
Said the whole thing.
Yeah, you were solving a puzzle. Yeah, that's why I'm like, wow.
That was getting weird.
I was thrown into. It was essentially two things. I was first thrown into an what looked like what I can only imagine is what people refer to as machine elves. It was a large, like wooden carving that was in front of me, but it moved, so things were like interlocking and folding over. And now and again, it would open up, and as it unfolded, it would become bigger and bigger and bigger, and then eventually, that exploded, and explode is the right word, but not like a explosion. It fragmented and like whiz past me, and then I was left with a like a large mosaic of like aqua marine. No, they were all the same colored tiles, but they were all very like aquamarine, great green, and then like a sea blue color of these tiny little tiles. And there was an arrowhead. Well, yeah, and it wasn't an arrowhead, but it was that sort of shape, like thing, like at the top of the mosaic. And I knew, I wasn't like I heard a voice. I knew if I thought of something that I really cared about, that something would happen. So the more and more I thought about my son, is the more that this arrowhead would work its way out. And so it wasn't like there was no holes, but as it would work through, the other blocks would just move out of the way for it. And eventually it came down to the bottom. It got out. And then when that fragmented in front of me, that's when I was getting visions of things that I can't remember. Like I know in my head, and they were shown to me like paintings, like large, like oil paintings with even the frame. I can remember the frame, but I can't remember the contents of it. And I was shown maybe 3 or 4 like of these like images, and then like Hat Man was kind of just presented. He just stood in front of me, just stood there like. There, sort of,
and at the same time that he was having that, I was quite fine, but there was a shadow, something in the room, and something grabbed my foot, and it was a shadow. It was like a shadow figure. I didn't see a hat though, but yeah, I'm well down with this Hat Man stuff. It freaks me out, but there's something to that.
I think it's a real entity. Like,
yeah,
100%.
Absolutely. And
well, I tend to agree. I used to think it was just sleep paralysis, but same thing, Ollie. I've been grabbed, I've been punched, I've been scratched. I mean, so many things by these shadow people. They can, whatever they are, they have the ability to interact with us in the physical realm. They've run their fingers up my back and things that I can't even talk about on YouTube. But man, there's something to it.
Crazy again, going back to Poltergeist, Steven Spielberg. Kane in the Hat Man. He's the Hat Man in that film.
Which one is that?
Poltergeist. I think that's Poltergeist 2. But yeah, about not going into the light. There's a Hat Man in that. I think Spielberg knows all about this.
He knows. And Freddy Krueger.
Okay, he's Freddy Krueger. That Wes Craven. Yeah, that's the Hat Man.
Yeah, Freddy Krueger was supposedly fashioned after Hat Man. And that skin that I see is very similar to Freddy Krueger. Something similar between Freddy Krueger or the Stranger Things monster, just that pinkish, reddish, crinkly, burnt skin are the entities I see.
Wild.
I'm going to sleep tonight.
It's crazy. Yeah. No. I imagine I'm going to feel a bit weird going to bed tonight.
Oh, no.
Thank you for coming on the show again, Fringe. It's been great. It was great last time. It's been even better this time. Tell people where they can find you and what you do and stuff like that if they want to hear more about you.
It's right there, Fringe, at fringe.com. I think the purple is actually cutting my head off. I look like maybe I'm a floating head. Fringe at fringe.com. On X, Twitter, that's where you can find me. I answer almost all of my DMs. I try to answer all of them unless you're selling Bitcoin or something like that. So yeah, if this is happening to one of your listeners, feel free to reach out. Some people have to create an X account to do it, but that's where you can find me.
Awesome. I will leave for those listening on the audio side of it, I will leave your X handle in the description of the podcast. Please hang around for a minute after our intro played out, and we'll say ta-ra and stuff.
Yeah,
but yeah,
guys,
thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely, yeah. Guys, if you like what we do here, consider leaving us a 5-star review. It really helps the channel out. Thank you.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Why are you a conspiracy theorist? And I said, why isn't everybody a goddamn conspiracy theorist?
This is the real research. Literally have an alien base, and they are literally communicating.
I I don't have a whole lot of time.
Have you personally had any experience with interdimensional beings?
What we're thinking of as aliens, they have infiltrated a lot of aspects of military establishment. And they are not what they claim to be.
We leave you much that is undone.
That's one small step for man.
There are great ideas undiscovered.
Visit asteroids, visit the moon of Mars.
Remove one of truth's protective layers.
There's a monolith.
They want those major population centers wiped out.
Will you put your left hand on the Bible and swear to God that you walked on the moon?
One giant leap for mankind.
Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened.
Those challenges are yours.
We don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society.
There are places to go beyond belief. Beyond belief.